Hello and welcome back to another episode of Our Stories and Conversations on Mental Health. I am your host, Matthew Modica, and in this episode we're going to discuss OCD. It's something that I've been suffering a lot lately, but before we get into it, if you have any stories you would like to share with the podcast, you can email me at mhcmatthewmodica, that's Matthew with a double T and Modica spelled MODICA @gmail.com, or you can message me on Instagram, which is Matthew Modica MHC. It will be all confidential. I'll just read out your story and you can share a story of what you've gone through and how you've fought through it, because that's the whole point of this podcast, is to build a community where we can all reach out to each other, talk about each other's stories, have conversations, and maybe learn from each other and see what works for each other. Things that you might do, I can try, and things I try, maybe you can try, and yeah, we can all just kind of help out each other. So this episode is going to be on OCD. I'm going to just discuss what OCD kind of is first, because I think the word gets thrown around loosely, and then we will just talk about how I suffer from it and the type of OCD that I have. So people like to, at work or whatever, be like, oh no, I've got to do this, I've got OCD, I need to do this, and not really know how much OCD impacts people's lives. Like, it really has impacted my life. It's been very hard. It's like one mental health issue that, I've fought with anxiety and depression, and this is on a whole nother level. So what OCD is, you have an obsession, okay? And then when you obsess about this thought or image in your mind, you then get anxious and you start to do a compulsion. So you think about these thoughts and you think that you're going to do them, and you get anxious and then you start doing compulsions. So examples of obsessions. So you've got contamination. So you've got body fluids, germs and diseases, household chemicals. They're things that you're afraid of and you're worried that if you touch them that you're going to get some kind of disease. Harming yourself or harming others. Again, it's just thoughts. You don't actually go through with them. You get anxious and scared about the thoughts that you will do it. Also have the illnesses, so concerned with things that aren't germs related and more like diseases like cancer, or you might have a heart attack or things like that. Losing control, so your fear of stealing things, acting on impulse, act violently or recklessly. Being a perfectionist, so you like to be things in order. You don't like losing things. You have to make the perfect decisions. You have to write things out the perfect way. So there's religious obsessions, which is, concern of offending God, concern with blasphemy, concerned of right or wrong. You then have the superstitions, where you're worried about numbers, lucky or unlucky numbers, words or colors, and then unwanted sexual thoughts. Again, these are just thoughts that go in your mind that cause the anxiety, and that is like forbidden, perverse thoughts or obsession about homosexuality, obsessions involving children or incest, aggressive sexual behavior. So these are all those obsessions that people get in their mind. They think that they're going to do, they get anxious, and then they start to do compulsions. So examples of compulsions are avoiding situations that might trigger your obsessions. So for example, if you are worried about chemicals, household chemicals, you will try not to clean. Scared of grass, you're not going to go walk on the lawn. You know what I mean? So you're avoiding situations that might trigger obsessions. Checking things. So checking that you didn't lose something numerous times. Checking that you didn't make a mistake numerous times. Forgetting something. Checking your body numerous times to see if, is this cut disease, just checking multiple times, confessing or asking for reinsurance. So going to a friend or a partner or a family member and saying, this happened, do you reckon I'm okay? Or trying to get reassurance from them to make you feel better. You'd think that, talking to someone about it and, them saying that everything's okay is, a good thing. But no, it's a compulsion that is hard for OCD people. So then you have the mental compulsion. So replaying the events, reviewing them in your mind, counting or saying certain words under your breath, blocking or pushing away the thoughts, then praying excessively. Also the way you order things, so arranging clothes and stationery, books in a certain way. So you get anxious, you might, those books need to be put in order, and you start doing that when you feel the anxiety. Repeating things, so rereading, rewriting, doing routine activities like walking through doors 5 times to make sure you've done it right. Body movements such as like tapping and blinking. Then you've got the washing and cleaning, so example, your hands and your clothes in a certain way, certain certain amount of times, cleaning them excessively, and preventing contact with chemicals that might make you feel that, I got to clean myself because I'm going to get contaminated if I touch those things. So they're your compulsions. So that's what happens. You get the obsession, you get the anxiety, you then do the compulsion. So with me, I went to go see the psychologist. I was having health anxiety where every time I had a cough, I thought, I'm going to have lung cancer. I always thought the worst when I was sick. So my doctor said, you should go see a psychologist. So I got a referral and I went to see a psychologist. And I've seen a lot of psychologists throughout my life. My parents got divorced when I was really, really, really young. From then on, I was in and out of psychologists. So I went to see the psychologist about health anxiety. As we went on, he then said that I have OCD. And I knew I had OCD because when the pandemic hit, I would worry about getting sick. What happened was I would wear the mask, wear gloves when I went to the shops, make sure my skin didn't touch anything on the shelves, wash my clothes, I'd take them off as soon as I got home. And I was just very anxious about getting this sickness, this illness, whatever you want to call it. So then what happened was my brain was telling me that I need to wear the gloves, wear the mask to protect myself, do all these kind of things. And then during that time, what happened was a car got broken into at my apartment. And then my mind was like, my car gets broken into, they steal it, I'm not going to be able to get to work, I'm not going to be able to afford paying my mortgage, I'm going to end up broke, I'm going to end up on the streets. And that's my obsessive. That's how I would think. I would always think the complete worst. So what do you think I would start to do? I've got to check that my doors are all locked. And I would check them and check them and check them until the anxiety of have I checked them goes away. So then that happened. Then, lo and behold, one of the apartment, then someone tried to attempt to break into. So what did you think I did then? I would check that my apartment door was locked numerous times because I didn't want anyone to break into my apartment and take my toys or take my comics or take my PlayStation or TV, and started worrying about that because then I'll have to spend more money on buying all these things again, and I was just financially worried. So then I was just like, one day it just hit me like, what happens if this place burns down? Oh my God, I'm not going to have any money. And again, I just went to the worst case scenario. So what did I do? I started to check that all the power points were off, the gases were turned off from the stove, and just making sure everything was off before I left. Whenever I left that place, I made sure it all was all off because I was scared. Even though one of the other apartments could have just blown up and caused something, I was worried that mine was going to start it and then I was going to get in trouble. That's how my mind would think. So I started checking to make sure everything was okay. And then I started worrying about, if I'm late to work, I'm going to lose my job. So then I start checking my alarm is on all the time. All this checking and checking and checking. And I knew, all right, I've got OCD, but I just thought it'd go away. Once it'd go away, it'd get better, it'll go away. And then I got into a relationship, and then the more stresses of supporting us, and at work then started happening. Like the stresses at work, like worried, if work burns down, if something happens at work, no, I won't have a job. So then I made sure the computers were turned off, and telling the guys, make sure that PowerPoint's off, make sure that's off. These guys were like, chill out, man. Like they didn't like it, obviously, because it's like, I'm dragging them into my problem. So at work, I was always checking, making sure the doors were locked when I left. And again, multiple checking. And it just took over. And eventually, this was all before I went and saw the psychologist. And when I went to the psychologist and started explaining things, he's like, you have OCD. And then we started talking about it and seeing that, okay, where did it stem from? Where did it come from? And obviously it came from my childhood, because when we started talking about it and I started learning more about OCD, and I'm a person that's not afraid to speak my mind. I'm happy to be open and honest because I want people to know that it's okay to be open and honest, and if people judge you, don't even worry about it. They're not nice people. So what I'm about to say, I know people will judge me, but that's cool. I don't care. But this is just how I thought. But when I realized that I was in a past relationship in my early 20s, I once had obsessions about being a homosexual. But I'm not saying I'm against it, but I was just in a relationship and I started to get confused, and I was questioning myself, am I homosexual? What happened was a guy took off his top, and I was a big fella back then myself, big boy, and I was like, man, I wish I had a body like that. That's a nice body. And then I started thinking, am I gay? Because I think he's got a nice body. So then I started obsessing about that. And I was seeing a psychologist at the time, talking to her about it. She just told me to go watch some naughty films with men in it, picture myself in a relationship with a man. If I don't get aroused or I don't see that happening, then I'm not. So I did that, and I had none of that. But anyway, for a good couple of months, I'm not sure how long it was, I can't remember, but it affected my relationship. I couldn't even have sex because I kept thinking about it. And yeah, it kind of put pressure on the relationship. And I started to think, okay, in my early 20s, I had that kind of thought. And then I realized, okay, obsessing in other relationships. And I realized I had this from as far as I can remember, like when I was a little boy. So then I discovered that, I've had it my whole life. I've just always been misdiagnosed. And now I'm with this psychologist and we're trying to get through it. Now, the problem is with OCD, you can never get rid of it. Unfortunately, you can only learn to control it. And that's the whole idea of going to see the psychologist. I'm also seeing a psychiatrist who has helped put me on some medication. I'm not going to mention what medication because unfortunately, I don't know if I'm allowed to discuss that. So I got put on some medication as well to help with the anxiety because, again, it's the anxiety that causes the compulsion. So the medication is meant to help me with that. So what we're doing is we're trying to figure out when I get anxious to start these compulsions. So my obsessions is now like, I always thought I'm obsessing about this. So I've got to look more deep into it. So for example, when I have an argument with my partner, I get a bit maybe stressed and anxious, and then I'll start doing a compulsion. When I fear something, like something that's worrying me or scaring me, that's when I start to get my compulsion. So my OCD comes from my stress, my fear, and my anxiety. My fear is like if I go to the toilet and I see maybe a capsicum in my poo, which here's another funny story. I used to take photos of my poo every time just to make sure that there was nothing wrong. And if it looked like there was something wrong, I could show the doctor. So if I thought that there was blood in it, then I'd get really, really anxious. Yeah. And then I'd go into compulsions of checking things and doing things. So there, I just, went through a lot of things. Like when I'd go for walks over cracks, I was too scared to walk over cracks. I was too scared to walk over, the little electricity things on the ground, gas things on the ground. I was too scared to look at houses because I'd read a sign and then I'd get halfway through and be like, oh no, I didn't read it all. And I was just too scared to leave the house because I was just obsessing about everything. So we're trying to find the core of it. It's not like, okay, I'll walk past that sign, I read that sign, I'm feeling anxious. No, it's something that's happened prior to that. I haven't really sat there and dealt with the anxiety. I would always push it down or I'd have an outburst because they're the two things that are probably worse when you start getting anxiety is you have an outburst or you just keep it in. So what you've got to do is when you have this anxiety, and what he's trying to tell me is I've got to sit there and I've got to just question it and feel it and don't get angry. Don't bottle it up. Don't push it down. You've got to sit there, let it come out naturally. When I say come out naturally, like without not verbally doing it, just let it come. The anxiety goes up, and then eventually it goes down and goes away. It's the problem is with people with OCD, we get to the anxiety goes up, and we're up at the top, and we've just got to just stay in there and just hold for like 15, 20 minutes and eventually go, but we just sometimes aren't strong enough, and bang, we go through doing our compulsions. So we're working on it. There's also another thing called exposure therapy, which is where you sit down, you write a script. We tried it. It's just not working yet because I haven't found the core thing of making me anxious like we slowly have. So you get the script, you write the script, and you sit there. So for example, my car, you'd sit there and say, okay, you lock your car, you only check it once. You can't go back and check it again for the rest of the night. And you'd say to yourself, okay, yep, my car is unlocked. Someone is going to break into my car. Someone is going to steal my car. They're going to take it away. I'm financially going to be ruined. I'm not going to have any money. I'm going to have to buy a new car. I'm going to end up... And you'd write down everything that you fear that would happen, okay? You're probably saying that's not a smart idea. Well, that's what you got to do. You got to expose yourself to the anxiety, the fear. And then you get that anxiety going up, and you keep reading the script for half an hour, 45 minutes, an hour and a half, however long it takes that anxiety to go away. And once that anxiety goes away, then you're good. And then you got to mark it, every couple minutes, whatever, however long you want to do it, every 2-3 minutes, whatever. 30 out of 100, my anxiety is 40 out of 100. And the whole idea is you'll see that your anxiety goes up, down, and eventually it goes away. So that's the plan. That's how you kind of control this mental health illness. It's a shame that there's not much awareness about this, and I wish that we did get more awareness about this. Yeah, if you do suffer from OCD, I'd love for you to write in and tell me anything that helps you and what you may do. I am in a support group as well that I do once a month. I've only done it once so far. I'm new to it. But yeah, like I said, this podcast, this channel, it's to connect with us all and all share our stories. It's all confidential. I have people coming on the show that are going to talk about being in relationships with people with mental health. I'm going to have people that have migrated from other countries to Australia and what challenges they dealt with. So I'm going to have all kind of different topics and stuff on here. So yes, if you got the story, email me mhcmatthewmodica@gmail.com, or you can message me on Instagram, MatthewModicaMHC. And like I said, it will be all confidential. So please, thank you very much for watching. I truly appreciate it. Be sure to please take care of yourself, and also let's take care of each other. And I'll see you on the next episode. Thank you for watching.